Hey, and welcome back to Ontario Cryptids. Today we're going to do something a little different. Yes, we are going to do encounter stories. However, I'm going to be concentrating on one main area. And this area is around Yellowstone Park. How many of you remember the recording of the Yellowstone Park web camera capturing a family of, I'm going to say, I think there was like 4 or 5 of them walking through Yellowstone Park. And you can actually see some buffaloes in front of them as they're approaching. And I believe ThinkerThunker covered a little snippet of them debunking that there's no way it was a person due to the height, etc., and etc. And if you haven't seen that, I will place that in the description below so you can go and check it out. So today we're going to cover stories around Yellowstone, and I'm going to add the clip of the Yellowstone webcam near the end of this video, just so if you haven't seen it, it'll give you the opportunity to see it. So guys, get yourself a beverage and let's get cozy on the couch and chair and sit back and relax. All right, this first story takes place through a period from 1970s to the 1980s. It takes place near Mammoth Hot Springs in Park County, Wyoming. And this account comes from a retired park ranger, Yellowstone Park ranger. So these are his accounts throughout the years. So it's little snippets of occurrences that happened within this 10-year span. And his account was actually submitted in 2005. And he is now a retired park ranger. I am not going to say this ranger's name, but it would appear that he was legendary among the park supporters and notorious amongst outfitters and scofflaws for his enforcement of park rules and regulations. He retired as a Yellowstone ranger in 2004, and few people have ever known Yellowstone's backcountry and its wildlife like he did. The first time I heard anything was in the mid-late 70s. An outfitter and I were riding up Fan Creek in the northwest section of the park. Up the drainage in Stellaria Creek, we heard a sound that just kept going and going. It was probably a mile away. It filled the whole valley up, kind of 1,000 like elk going to their death. I couldn't believe this thing had that much volume for that long of a period of time. And I had never heard anything like it either. A couple of weeks later, I was coming out from Sportsman Creek, taking a trail which comes out of Fan Creek. I was 11 miles back up high in a subalpine fir meadow complex. I was on a steep side hill with horses and in woods, but down below, about 40 to 50 yards, there was a kind of fairly flat meadow with dense subalpine thickets. There was these low fir growths that have a centerpiece tree and then everything kind of cone-shaped to the ground. They were about 20 yards wide or so. The horses were flaring their noses and snorting like they do when a grizzly bear is real close. But I could see fairly good all around and I couldn't see one. So I started looking down below me, and the horses were really agitated. They're wanting to get out of there. I held them, but only with effort. I looked down to see where Grizz was, and I saw a deer at the edge of thicket. All at once, it bolted and started jarring ahead perpendicular to me. Right then, coming out of the other side, was this thing that was running on 2 feet. It was black like a bear, and it had long arms and ran. I think I held it there 30 seconds, but it got scared and then came out. It ran, but not super fast. It ran to another thicket and went at an angle out of the thicket to another thicket about 40 to 50 yards away. At this point, the creature was 75 yards downslope. It kept hitting these thickets trying to get away from me. I never seen a bear do that. They'll always take a straight line. The first thing I thought was, bear? But right away I realized this black shaggy thing wasn't a bear. This thing was smart. I've never seen an animal try to pick up protection as it fled. I tied that together with the sound I heard on the other side of the drainage. It wasn't that tall. It looked like it was like 6 foot, maybe 6'5". The side of the face looked like it had a lot of fur. Most of the time it was angling away, so I only got a good look at the head for probably the first 10 steps. The proportions of the torso, it looked more stocky than anything else. I noticed the arms swung more than a human's would, and it didn't have elbows cocked. This was no hoax. I have ridden maybe 50,000 to 70,000 miles in the backcountry on horses, and you encounter a lot of bears when you do that. This thing, whatever it was no bear. One time, I was skiing into Heart Lake on the thoroughfare. We were 5-6 miles east of the road, and myself and a few others. All at once, we saw these footprints coming across the trail. There wasn't any path, and no one used to ski that far in back then. These were real big footprints stretched out far apart. It was deep snow, but it was fairly distinct tracks. That was the first and the only tracks I've seen. In the early to mid-'80s, in the same drainage as Mountain Creek, we were just coming into the Howell Creek cabin near Eagle Creek Pass at 85,000 feet. We were coming in right before dark, and we heard that noise. I timed it at 26 seconds, about 300 to 400 yards beyond the cabin, up the drainage. I checked the next day and couldn't find any footprints. Whatever that thing is, it doesn't let up to take a breath. The sound, it's like mechanical, rhythmical. I can't even describe it. It isn't like a mountain lion or bear, and bears can make some pretty weird noises. I heard no other reports of Bigfoot until 3 to 4 years ago. I was in Mountain Creek and heard this thing again. A district ranger once took sighting from a backpacker near Bulla Lake. That would have been in the 70s, west of the south entrance. Apparently the person watched one on the other side of a small lake for 10 minutes. The ranger felt the witness was very sane. These were some interesting accounts coming from a Yellowstone Park ranger. And it is interesting to state here that it looked like he never submitted any accounts until after he retired, which I'm guessing most people holding positions like that would do. They wouldn't jeopardize their jobs and report sightings of Bigfoots. But in any case, very interesting accounts, and it looks like he had a few weird, strange encounters. The only thing I'm kind of wondering about is the sound. I'm guessing he's referring to when a Sasquatch bellows out or roars, I guess, to be a better word, roaring. He says it sounded like it was mechanical or rhythmical. Mechanical? That's, I don't know, all the sounds that I heard sound very more organic, like it's coming from an animal and not coming from a machine. So I don't know, that's kind of unusual. But any case, that is that's a great one. And now we're going to move over to the next story in the same county. All right, so this is story number 2. It takes place July 14th, the year 2000, and it takes place near the town of Cody, about 30 to 40 miles west of Cody to be exact, and we are still in Park County, Wyoming. I am an outdoor enthusiast and was visiting Cody, Wyoming area this summer during the second week of July. While traveling the highway to Yellowstone National Park, about 30 to 40 miles west of Cody, I encountered heavy tourist traffic late in the day. I decided rather than fight it, I'll pull off the highway for a while and go for a walk. I hiked up an unmarked path north of the highway through intermittent timber. I was traveling at a leisure pace, exploring rocky outcrops and looking for Native American artifacts. About half a mile from the road, I could still hear traffic. I heard some rocks rolling downhill ahead of and above me. I was maybe 50 to 100 yards away. Mule deer and other game animals are plentiful in the area, and I didn't think much of it. I had bear spray with me, as this is well-known grizzly country. Maybe another half an hour went past, and I was taking a break, sitting on a rock ledge with a good view of the valley to the south. I heard underbrush breaking not far away on the steep timber-covered slope that led down to a dry stream bed. I was able to distinguish the pattern of an animal walking through the trees. Again, I didn't think much of it. I'm used to hearing game in the woods, and I don't spook at stuff like that. I guessed that it was probably a deer feeding along the slope. A little odd considering the time of day, though. Its behavior was highly inconsistent with bears, which don't hang around when people show up. I started hiking again and almost immediately heard something move through the brush just below me in the same spot. This was a little strange, I thought, like it was staying with me or something. I tried to see downhill, but when I stopped, I couldn't hear it. It seems to stop moving when I did, and I couldn't get a fix on its location. I began to get a somewhat uneasy feeling about things at this point. There is no good way to describe it other than something seemed to be intentionally staying with me. I started walking again, and shortly after, not having heard anything for a little while, I heard something run across the rocks not far up in front of me. It was up out of the drainage at this point. I was getting a little apprehensive by this time and decided to start back towards the road, which was maybe a mile away. I walked pretty quickly, and for most of the way I heard nothing. But about a quarter of a mile or so from the highway, and maybe 15 minutes since I turned back, I heard rocks and debris falling down slope again. It seemed awfully close, and I instinctively whirled around thinking that I might see something, which I did. I will do my best to describe it, but I got only a short glimpse. I can't be sure of what it was. It was about 60 to 70 yards away on a rocky slope, immediately adjacent to the same heavy timbered slope I had been hiking along. As soon as I turned and looked at it, it jumped right away into the cover and completely out of sight. There is one thing I'm absolutely certain of. Whatever it was upright. I clearly could see 2 limbs off the ground that appeared more like arms than legs. They were definitely hanging down the side and not down the front as one might expect of a 4-legged animal standing on 2 legs. This doesn't mean that it wasn't a bear, but I've never heard of a bear acting like this thing was. That is, if I'm right, and it was the same animal that I feel was following me all along. You hear about predatory bear behavior where they follow people though, so who knows? At any rate, the animal was brown with very long hair. I noticed that when it leaped into the woods, the hair swayed to one side from the sudden motion. It seemed longer than bear hair, and to notice the swaying effect at this distance, I would guess that maybe the hair was a foot long or more. Also, for just the initial instance before its flight, I got a pretty good look at its face, which was long and somewhat flat. It was too far away to clearly make out individual features, but I have seen several bears at greater distance, and it doesn't strike me that that is what it was. I was not aware of this site at the time, nor of the occurrences detailed in it for this area. When I mentioned the incident to a friend who had not heard of the site either, we did a net search on Bigfoot out of curiosity. I was a little astonished to see the main page indicating this region as potential Bigfoot country with recent sightings. I figured I might as well say something. I think all three of the other incidents had witnesses, and I didn't, so I can't point to any other who can verify anything I saw or heard. It would have been nice just to see if someone else had seen something resembling what I think I saw. Trust me, it takes a little bit of time for it to register. You just don't think right off, hey, there's a Bigfoot. I was probably almost at my vehicle before I even let the thought enter my mind. I can't say for sure that what I saw is what I had been hearing in the woods throughout the hike. One tends to make these connections afterwards, but I really have no way of knowing. I will say, however, that I think it might have been. This is based more on a feeling than anything else. I realize that breaking branches and rock slides don't exactly constitute scientific certainty. It really was like something was checking me out, though. That was another great story. Like the ranger stated in the first story, he has never seen a bear try to physically hide from a person. They would just continue moving along out of the area, which makes sense. They wouldn't try and dodge and hide, strategically from one point to another, which kind of is brought up in the second story. The creature seems to be standing on 2 feet and jumps into cover. Why would a bear jump into cover? The bear would just lumber away slowly, maybe huff and puff on his way out of the area, but he wouldn't jump into cover and hide. So I do believe that this person on a hike did encounter a Bigfoot. All right, so let's move on to the last story of the day. All right, guys, this is the last story of the day. This one takes place in the spring, May of 1978. And again, we are in Park County, Wyoming. And this takes place approximately 30 minutes east of the east gate of Yellowstone National Park. Again, this is an approximate area. This is not the actual area. All right, let's get into this story. The sighting was witnessed by my friend and myself, both geologists, while driving into Yellowstone from Cody for employment at the park for the summer. My friend was taking his turn at driving, and I was soaking up as much as I could see, as well as providing a running commentary to keep my friend alert during our long drive. As we came around a curve in the road, our high beams illuminated a large, dark, shaggy figure coming up and out of the ditch on the left side, south of the road, at a distance at about 200 to 250 feet. As we approached the figure at a speed of about 45 miles per hour, it looks first at the vehicle. We noticed a yellow reflection from its eyes that is reminiscent of a dog's eyes when light catches it at night. The creature then deliberately turns its head away from the lights. That motion was non-human or bear-like, in that the shoulders, chest, and head moved simultaneously as it caught sight of our vehicle and then turned its face away from the headlights. We slowed. We slammed on the brakes, stunned at what we were seeing and trying to rationalize what we were looking at. A hominid creature, perhaps 7 to 7.5 feet in height. We have a 7-foot friend as a reference, massing perhaps 600 to 800 pounds without obvious signs of obesity, standing completely and comfortably upright. Came up out of the ditch from the left side of the road at the edge of the metal barrier above the culvert. It took 3 extraordinary long and fluid strides across the highway, 22 feet, and another 3 to 4 shorter strides down the other side of the road, actually appearing to catch hold of a metal barrier railing with one long-fingered hairy hand and swinging down under the road into the box culvert or channel bottom, completely out of our line of sight. We stopped the vehicle within 25 feet of the culvert and watched the final descent of the creature into the darkness of the channel. At this point, we sped on towards the east gate of Yellowstone National Park, hoping to find a ranger to report the sighting to, and perhaps to go back and take another look. There was no one at the gate due to the late hour, and we didn't see any lights on anywhere. So we continued on to our destination and went to bed, deciding not to contaminate each other's observation with discussions until morning. In the morning, we both independently described graphically and in writing as much of what we had seen 6 hours earlier. This is a synopsis of our findings. They were virtually identical down to the movement of which leg moved first as the creature crossed the road. The head appeared to merge into the neck, and there was no snout or protrusion from the face as would be commonly seen in a bear. I have seen hundreds up close and in person. The face was not clearly visible and was only glimpsed for a moment. We both got an impression of long hair covering some of it. The nostrils were large and open, but neither of us were able to describe the mouth or teeth. The eyes weren't exceptional, just a reflection of gold, like a dog. What each of us can still describe with great clarity is the size, shape, and unique fluid movement of the creature. It was big, 7 to 7.5 feet tall, but not much bigger than that. It was heavy and powerful looking. In shape, it possessed a rather blocky yet elongated head, slightly domed at the top of the cranium, thick short neck, broad shoulder, and full chest. It was square and longer through the torso and hip than a human. As it walked across the road in front of us, the buttocks were clearly seen as muscular masses moving under heavy shaggy hair. They obviously attached to long, powerful, muscular thighs, longer in proportion to a human, big knees that functioned as a human knee, thick muscular calves and feet in proportion to the rest of the oversized body. The soles of the feet appeared to be hairless or less covered in hair and very dark in color. The arms hung from heavily muscled shoulders and were longer than a human's, reaching to the knee length and extended fully and almost a horizontal position to the front and rear of the body as it moved. The elbows were perhaps a little further down the arm than one of a human, or the unusual length of the arm made it appear so. The hands were large and long-fingered. Neither of us could later describe the palms or nails, or other than the backs of the hands, which were covered in the same long, shaggy, dark brown hair as the rest of the creature. The creature made no sound nor gesture throughout the sighting. It appeared a little startled at our vehicle appearing out of the night, but in no other way frightened or threatening. It startled the heck out of the two of us, though. Wow, talk about a very descriptive detail of what the creature looked like. I don't think they left anything out. And in no way, shape, or form was this not a Bigfoot or Sasquatch. Definitely it was. Great story. In fact, all of these were really great stories. And again, these stories were all around the Yellowstone National Park. And as I stated before, I'm going to insert right here a video which was caught on the webcam of the park itself. It was so if you don't know, most national parks in and around Canada and the United States both have webcams in certain areas of the park. And this particular one was, I believe, at one of the geysers. The interesting thing about this clip is that a viewer named Mary Greeley News, and I am going to insert her original clip, she actually records seismic reactions and stuff like that, earthquake-related videos around different parts of the States. And so one day she happened to record the geyser Old Faithful going off at Yellowstone, and she was capturing a couple of buffaloes who were in visible view. And this is what she captures. Okay, so here's the clip, and this is just a section of the clip, but as you can see in the forefront, there are a few buffaloes roaming in the foreground. Now, if you take a look right now, you'll see 1, 2, 3, 4 of them come walking out from right to left. They're just coming out of the pine area here. Now, the interesting here is you're going to notice only one comes out and all of the other ones stay behind the tree. And I guess Yellowstone catches on and they zoom out. Now, ThinkerThunker has a more elaborate breakdown of this video, and it's much longer because he stops it and shows you different things here and there. So again, I have left the link to ThinkerThunker's video in the description below. So go ahead and take a look at that. If these encounter stories sparked any memory of anything you may have witnessed, then please forward your stories to OntarioCryptids@gmail.com, and I will be more than happy to share your story on this channel. Well, I want to thank you all again for coming out and checking out another video, and let's see if we can get 50 likes on this one. That would be really nice. 50 likes would be just wonderful by the end of next week. And thank you all again. Have a fantastic Sunday, and we're going to see you all next week.